She was told to stay silent. Instead, she threatened rebellion. Outside, the world was in chaos. Revolution meant the rumble of distant cannon fire, and daily reports of injured soldiers and civilians caught in the crossfire. And while the country was warring outside, smallpox raged within. Alone, Abigail Adams tends to her children, manages the farm, and buries her grief. Her husband, President John Adams, is a continent away, desperately trying to bring order to the chaos of the Continental Congress. But despite all this, her fire, the fire of her defiance, only grew. She had a secret weapon, not a musket or a sword, but a pen. Over years of isolation, she penned 1,100 letters of wit, rage, and hope that demanded a new nation to listen to its women. Welcome to HerStory, where we tell the stories of women who quietly reshaped the world. Abigail, welcome. It's an honor. We know you as a First Lady, but today I'd like to meet the woman behind the title, the woman who wrote those unforgettable letters.
Well, a quiet life is a luxury the world rarely affords a woman. And I never believed a woman's mind or her opinions belonged only in the home. Rebellion comes in many forms.
That spark, where did it come from? You had no formal schooling, right?
Correct. My health kept me home, but my father's library was my school. Shakespeare, Milton, Locke, they taught me to think for myself.
And eventually, you caught the attention of a young lawyer named John Adams. Was it love at first sight?
Oh, heavens no. He thought my sisters and I weren't fond or frank. My mother called him rustic, with a trolling gait, as if he were some farm ogre.
So what changed?
Letters. We fell in love through ink and paper. He teased me as Miss Saucy. I challenged his ideas. He wasn't looking for a decorative wife. He wanted a sparring partner.
But your marriage was tested immediately. Wasn't John gone for years?
Yes. Liberty is a demanding mistress. At times, I felt like a widow before my time. I pleaded with him, could he not let another take his place, if only so I might have my husband back? My heart was like a feather in the wind, tossed in endless anxiety.
What kept you going?
My children. And faith that the sacrifice had meaning. My letters were lifelines, reminders of love, and I am sure you can surmise, they were a record of my fury and loneliness. The cost was immense.
Wow. Yet, through it all, you still managed everything at home.
Well, fear does not plow fields or feed children. I learned to direct farmhands, buy land, barter at the market. Once, I climbed Penn's Hill with little John Quincy hand in hand, while cannons thundered at Bunker Hill. We could see smoke rising in the distance, and I told my 7-year-old that's what freedom meant. It was a terrifying time, but let me be clear. Defiance wasn't just on paper, it was keeping my family alive.
And that is the strength that carried you through unimaginable hardships. You also had to face a different kind of enemy, alcoholism.
Yes. It was a shadow that claimed my brother William, then also stalked my sons. Thomas struggled his entire life with drink and debt, never realizing the great promise he held. And Charles, my bright, brilliant Charles, was destroyed completely. His fall was swift and absolute. He was brilliant, but unstable. The disease, this intemperance, it twisted him into someone we could no longer recognize.
That is so very sad. And John cut ties with Charles, didn't he?
He did. We saw it as a moral weakness. That was the lens through which we saw the world then. But a mother's heart never stops grieving. When my children died, it was grief unlike any other. War, loss, I survived those. But this was a wound that never healed.
I understand and feel so sorry for your loss. And yet, John Quincy rose above it all.
Yes, my great pride. Brilliant, disciplined. But he carried the sorrow of his brothers with him always. If you can, try to imagine helping to build a nation yet failing to save your own children. That is the curse I lived with.
Even through personal grief, Abigail, you still spoke out. That fierce protective instinct for your family seems to have expanded to the nation as a whole, especially for women. That brings me to your most famous letter, the one where you urged John to remember the ladies as he was writing the new laws. What were you truly asking for at that moment? It was more than just a vote, wasn't it?
Oh, much more. A vote would have been a fantasy at that time. No, I was demanding something more fundamental, more immediate. I was talking about the legal tyranny of a husband over his wife. Under the existing laws, a married woman was a non-entity. She could not own property. She had no right to her own earnings, and she had little to no legal protection from a cruel or abusive husband.
So you were talking about basic human rights and protection.
Precisely. I was asking that the new laws not put such unlimited power into the hands of men. Remember, I wrote, all men would be tyrants if they could. I had seen enough families, enough neighboring wives trapped in miserable situations to know that absolute power in a home was just as dangerous as absolute power from a king. I was demanding that the law see a woman as a person, not simply the property of her husband.
How did John take that?
He laughed, brushed it off as charming wit, but I wasn't joking. I couldn't imagine a free republic without women's equality. I really mean it. Women need to be heard.
Despite John's dismissiveness, I understand that he valued your political mind and considered you to be his closest and most trusted confidant.
Yes, he did. I was his eyes and ears. I reported militia morale, troop movements, the neighbors' moods, the successes and failures of the local militias. I never sweetened my opinions or held back my criticisms. John did not need flattery. He needed an honest assessment of the world he had left behind, and I provided it.
And were your opinions ever controversial? Did you ever find yourself at odds with the other founding fathers?
Oh, yes, and most painfully with Mr. Thomas Jefferson. We were once dear friends, but when his party slandered John, I felt betrayed, as did John. Losing that bond, it cut deep.
What happened?
Politics. After my husband became president, Mr. Jefferson's political party launched the most vicious personal attacks against him. They questioned his integrity, his patriotism, everything we had sacrificed for. And I believe Thomas not only knew about it, but quietly encouraged it. It was a betrayal I could not easily forgive. To see a friend, a man who had shared our table, and then orchestrate such a campaign, it was a profound wound.
And this was made even more complicated by the fact that you were very close to his daughter. Wasn't that right?
Oh, my dear Polly. When Thomas was serving in France, his young daughter was sent to join him. She was only 9 years old and had just lost her mother. She made the long voyage across the Atlantic alone and arrived in London, where we were living. Polly stayed with us for several weeks before continuing on to Paris. In that short time, I grew to love that child as if she were my own. To later be at such bitter odds with her father, it was a sorrow I carried for many years.
Did you and Jefferson ever reconcile? It must have been incredibly difficult.
It was. After his dear Polly tragically died in childbirth years later, I broke the long silence between us. I felt compelled to send a letter of condolence, mother to father. But I will not pretend it was a simple letter of sympathy.
What do you mean?
I offered my sincerest grief for his loss, of course. But I also reminded him of the friendship that had been destroyed. I wrote to him that I had also lost a son, and that my letter was the effect of a sympathy which I would not deny myself. But I also could not deny the truth. I reminded him directly of the unjustifiable measures and the bitter insults my husband had endured. I was, in essence, telling him, "I grieve with you as a parent, but do not think I have forgotten what you did as a politician." It was not a peace offering. It was a reckoning.
So even in reconciliation, there was defiance.
Justice demanded it. The friendship was never what it once was. Too much damage had been done, but a measure of truth was spoken between us. Some wounds, even when they close, leave a scar.
Let's talk about some of your other acts of defiance. You also defied expectations with money. How did a minister's daughter become a shrewd investor?
Necessity. John's service was rarely paid. With 4 children and a farm, survival demanded action. So I imported scarce goods, cloth, ribbons, tea. Even in a revolution, neighbors still wanted calico. Then I bought war bonds and loyalist lands. Risky, yes, but I trusted my judgment.
John must have worried.
Oh, endlessly. He'd caution against speculation. I'd consider his words, then buy another plot of land. The results spoke for themselves.
I want to talk about your views on slavery, which were quite radical for your time. But to provide some crucial context, your own family, the Smiths, owned enslaved people when you were growing up. How did you reconcile that childhood reality with the powerful convictions you later developed?
That is a difficult but essential truth. I grew up in a world where that practice was woven into the fabric of daily life, and my own home was no exception. I cannot deny that. But to live with something is not the same as to approve of it. To witness it firsthand is to see the human cost of it, the quiet indignities, the inherent injustice, in a way that can never be understood from a distance.
So seeing it up close is what changed you.
My father taught us that all souls were equal in the eyes of God. As I grew older, I simply could no longer reconcile that spiritual truth with the physical reality I saw around me. It became the great hypocrisy I spoke of. So when I heard men champion the cause of liberty while they themselves were masters over others, it was not an abstract contradiction for me. It was a visceral one. It was a rot at the foundation of everything we were trying to build.
And you acted on that belief. There's a story about a young black man in your town.
Yes. A young freedman in Braintree wished to learn to read and write, and he began attending the local evening school. Well, the outrage from our neighbors was immediate. They threatened to withdraw their own children if he was allowed to stay.
What did you do?
I told him his ambition to learn was commendable, and that he was a free man as much as any of them. I asked them, was he to be denied instruction merely because his face was black? He was allowed to stay. Sometimes, defiance is not a grand rebellion with cannons and declarations. Sometimes, it is a simple, firm refusal to bend to the foolish and prejudiced will of others.
And this wasn't just about defending others in public. You made a profound choice in your own life regarding this issue. Tell me about Phoebe.
Yes, dear Phoebe. She had been in our family since I was a child. Upon my father's death, the question of her future and that of others arose. For me, there was no question. The idea of my family bequeathing another human being was something my conscience could no longer abide.
So you freed her.
Her freedom was secured, yes. But it was more than just a legal transaction. Phoebe chose to continue living with our family for many, many years. But as a free woman, she was a paid and valued member of our household. We looked after her into her old age, and she was a dear friend. To me, it was a simple matter of rectifying a wrong that I had been born into. Her life, her freedom, and her choices mattered. It was a small act in a world full of a great evil, but it was an act I was morally bound to undertake.
It's clear your convictions were not just words in a letter. They were the principles you lived by. It's truly inspiring. Before we finish, I have one last, somewhat impossible question for you.
I have found that the most interesting questions often are. Please, ask.
If you could see America today, 2025, what would you think?
You've abolished slavery. Women are educated and voting, even holding the highest offices. Yes, that brings me joy beyond words. The rebellion I urged was not in vain. But what stirs me most is not what you've already achieved, but what remains undone. I would ask, why do poverty and inequality still bind so many, though their chains are no longer iron? Why do mothers still fear for their children simply because of the color of their skin? Why must women, though free in law, still fight to be equal in pay, in power, in protection from violence? Liberty is not merely the right to cast a ballot. It is the chance to live with dignity, to be safe in one's home, to have one's labor valued fairly, and one's voice heard fully. Until every man, woman, and child may claim that liberty without fear, your republic is not finished. The experiment continues, and it demands the same courage, the same defiance we once gave our lives for.
Abigail Adams, thank you. Your voice is as essential today as it was 2 centuries ago.
The work continues.
These women changed history, yet their names were left in the shadows. We're bringing their voices back. Like and subscribe for more Untold chapters.